Yeah, this welcome to Pitch Perfect. This is in preparation for Start Peninsula, the micro pitch competition. And Gary and we're going to teach you everything that you need to know to be an amazing pitcher.
Except one thing. And then you have to figure out what the one thing is. No, kidding.
Well, we can get you pretty far, but I was going to think that one thing would be the practice and then the effort to bring yourself across the finish line. But I know that Gary and I will do everything we can to get you to the finish line. You just got to carry yourself across. So
Got
we're-
now.
we will get into that. So I will share my pitch deck. Admit. All right. Never fails. We start on time and then we continue to have people that jump in, which is totally cool. But as I mentioned, I'm Tim Ryan. I'm the executive director of Innovate Hampton Roads. We do a lot for the entrepreneurial community here in Hampton Roads, and with me behind the scenes is Emmanuel Perez, who's part of my team, and also Gary Plaag. Gary and I are going to tag team this effort tonight, and we're going to teach you everything that you need to know about pitching. There's a lot of seriousness when it comes to we'll get you to the finish line. Typically, seven out of 10 people that do attend Pitch Perfect, that attend the micro pitch, move on to the finals, and 2 out of the 3 people that win are also Pitch Perfect attendees as well. So I think that Gary and we've been doing this for quite some time, several years together. I think we have a great chemistry between us. And we're just going to put everything out there. I've been involved with startups for the last 14 years. That starts from starting an incubator, which is where Gary and I met. Then nonstop working with startups, helping with idea validation of the idea, getting their business started, helping them raise money, and also writing checks as an angel investors. So I bring all that to the table. And then Gary, if you want to take a couple seconds to introduce yourself, tell
Yeah,
us why
thanks,
we should
Tim.
listen to you.
Yeah, my name is Gary, and I've met Tim. Well, we met in 2015, I think, when I lived in Williamsburg. And then we started doing these things together, and they were in person then. And I have a business that is pretty much in its sunset phase. I've had it for 26 years. And it's a communication consulting business that I started in 1998 when there was no help. And so I have kind of a unique perspective in the way it was in the old days before there was anybody to help you, and not having any help, I'm eager to help so that people can get started better. And yeah, so the communication consulting business is all about presentations a lot. And so that's the piece that I help with, is how do you make your message as succinct and clear as possible? And I'll help with the visual impact and those different things, and we'll talk more about that later. So that's my thing. I don't live in Williamsburg anymore. I live in the mountains of North Carolina in Boone. But since things are all online, then Tim still allows me to stay connected, and we work together on this
Yeah.
and the pitch competitions. So I'm eager to help you all. And yeah, does that help?
Yeah. So yeah, Gary was a professor for many years, to include William and Mary, with the business school there. I started the Launchpad, which is still at William and Mary, and then be with us. We've worked with a lot of founders. We've helped people raise a lot of money, and like I said, we do a great job together. So we look forward to diving in with you all tonight. And what tonight is going to look like, we're going to go over the elements of the pitch, and then if you have any questions, then we'll jump into questions. And if anyone is brave enough, then we'll give you the opportunity to practice your pitch. So this is a safe zone. Yes, this is being recorded. However, this is just so people can go back and watch the presentation. We're not going to post any of the practice pitches. If you want a copy of what it is that you pitched and the feedback you received, then we're more than happy to share that. But this is a safe zone. We're here to build everyone up. We're not here to tear anyone down. And it's worked out really, really well. So even if you don't have a pitch already prepared, what we're going to with these elements of the pitch, you can just take a piece of paper and a pen and just start writing down answers to the topics that we're going to talk about. And what that will do is that's going to formulate the outline of your pitch. And then you'll quickly see how everything comes together, but you'll also see how like we have to massage certain parts and pieces to make everything fit. I touch on everything from the business side. Gary touches on everything from the performance side. We mush those two together, and then you're off to the races.
And just so you know, I have an uncanny ability to get people who didn't think they were going to give it a try to give it a try. Am I right, Tim?
That is very true.
And what happens, I think, a lot is you'll get more confident as we go through this. And then at the end, if you don't volunteer to go and give it a try, when the call's over, you're going to kick yourself all night for not having done it. And you're going to go, I would have been so much further ahead if I just done it. So that's my thing, to just say, just lean into the discomfort at the end and just volunteer. And Tim and I will stay on as long as you want to try. Cool?
Yeah.
Right,
We
Tim?
have seen some pretty amazing things happen. This is pretty special. And I really enjoy doing this portion of Start Peninsula and helping other organizations across the region with this. So for the purpose of Start Peninsula, we're going to put 3 minutes on the clock because that is what your pitch is going to be. It's going to be 3 minutes. And a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, where do I start? I have no clue on what I'm supposed to do. So like, seriously, what we're going to do is just break everything down into 3 minutes, and then you'll quickly see on how everything fits together. So like, start with an attention getter and take 10 seconds to do that. However, the attention getter should not be, hi, my name is John, and I'm the founder of such and such. Start with a quote, start with a statistic, anything that is going to grab that person's attention. This evening is going to be really fast paced. We're going to go from pitcher to pitcher to pitcher. And while the judges, there's a lot of stuff that they're thinking about. They're following a rubric. Grabbing their attention is going to be, that's where we want to start. So take 10 seconds to do that. Then we're going to jump into the problem or the opportunity. And you're going to talk about that for 50 seconds. And like when I was talking about grabbing a piece of paper and a pen, like literally saying the problem I'm trying to solve is, this is a problem because, just really in the highest level explaining what the problem is. And then we're going to dive into this stuff a little bit deeper. But you'll quickly see how things fill up pretty fast. You're going to talk about the solution next. You'll have 50 seconds to talk about that. And again, we'll dive into what the solution looks like. Now we have everybody's attention. They understand the problem. They understand what you're solving. And then you can get into your name. One thing to keep in mind, these are not exact times. This is not like baking cookies or a cake, where if you have to follow everything to exact precision. If your attention getter's 5 seconds, you can add 5 seconds someplace else. But this is just a guideline. What we see oftentimes, Gary and I will kind of look at each other on Zoom because we know what's going to happen. Someone's going to go way too long on the problem, and then they're going to run out of time, and they're not going to have the ability to talk about some of the other key metrics. And just so you all are aware, there's no secrets when it comes to this. The judge's rubric is the problem, the solution, the target market, and then the quality of your pitch. It's those 4 things. So if you talk about the problem, you talk about the solution, you talk about your target market for another 50 seconds. And then because you've been to this Pitch Perfect class, now you can see why people generally do very, very well. Because if they didn't attend this, they have no idea that they're performing. and they may totally skip over or gloss over one of the other areas, and then it becomes really, really difficult for the judges to score you the way that that they have to score you. But the thing is that you're going to need this forever and ever as long as you're trying to operate your business as a founder. And again, we'll jump into that target market in terms of what that looks like and what you need to include. And then your closing, you have 10 seconds to go with your close. We'll talk about that. A lot of times that's like your company one-liner again. So like uh, I'm Tim Ryan, the executive director of Innovate Hampton Roads, where we coordinate, consolidate, and celebrate entrepreneurship and innovation across Hampton Roads. Company one-liner, something super easy, something people understand, they're going to remember you, and then you're done. You know, you add all that stuff up, and that's your 3 minutes. And so, like, that's the outline of what your pitch looks like. So it's a whole lot easier to digest and comprehend when you break it down this way. Gary, anything you would like to add to that?
No, just to reiterate what you said, this is descriptive, not prescriptive. You may have some pieces of this are longer and shorter. And the other thing is, it's as you're writing things down, when you're putting down that this is the problem I'm trying to solve or the opportunity, that's so important because so often Tim and I see in pitches where people haven't asked for help and they have an awesome solution. We call it an awesome solution looking for a problem. It's really not a problem, or they've not spent much time identifying it. So as you go through this, really think about what's the problem and what's the solution and how am I going to make money? Yep.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, real quick, I add this slide in here because this is going to be one of those things that keep in the back of your mind to help guide your business and where it's going. If there's a secret sauce. It's called the flywheel, and you need these three things. This is, and these three things is what's going to help propel everything else. You need a product. So like that's your solution. Yeah, like do you have a product or do you have a solution? So like you need to have that. You need to have a team. We understand right now that that might be just you, but when it comes as we progress into some of the future slides, we're going to talk about leaning into vulnerability and offsetting your weaknesses. But you need a team in order to create a product or a service, and then you need customers. So that's the flywheel that I'm talking about. And when you have all those things, you're going to have growth. And without that, you just have an idea. And what we're trying to do with Start Peninsula is validate what that idea is. We want to give you an indicator that, yep, your idea, it's validated, it's worth pursuing. You can put more energy towards this business because the last thing we want to see anyone do, put a second mortgage on a home, quit your job, max out credit cards, any of that stuff. We want to first validate your idea. And those are the three components that you need, because when you have a product, you have customers, the customer is going to generate revenue that you can put back into your team. That team is going to then increase the product to delight more customers, and you get that flywheel spinning, and then that's what's going to create your business. So keeping that in mind, we want to put all those things together in order for your business to grow.
Tim, can we also expand that team doesn't necessarily mean that you have two co-founders, and it's whoever is helping you to make this happen. This could mean that you have an advisor that does this, and you have an accountant that does this, and you have this thing that one thing we need often we learn, I guess, is that the technicians in businesses, or the people that who end up starting business, are the technicians who have this idea because they're really good at doing things, but they're not really good at running a business. And so you end up needing a team that's able to help you to make this work. And even if it's an advisor, identify who these people are, because at the pitch, the judges want to see that it's not just you by yourself in your basement. They get more confidence that this actually could work if you have a team of people that's working with you and you're not trying to do it all yourself.
And the same holds true. That's a great point, Gary. Thank you for bringing that up. The same holds true for customers. We understand this is a platform to validate your idea, but what we're looking for in if you have customers, that's awesome. We want to hear about that. If you don't have customers, have you started doing customer interviews? Have you floated this idea to a certain number of people? What has the feedback been that you have received? So that also counts towards customers and customer growth. And the same thing in terms of a product. I'm sure you probably heard of minimal viable product. What is your MVP? And so like we get it. You're not going to have like the finished product right now. Chances are it's going to be like a very minimal of MVPs, but you got to start somewhere because unfortunately ideas are not worth anything. Validated ideas is where all the value comes into play.
And Tim often says, we used to have a picture on the wall that said, the idea is free, the hustle costs extra. So it's got to have something behind it.
Yep. All right. So let's jump into the problem and some things to consider about the problem. Again, we talked about this briefly, but 50 seconds, it is not a long time. And this is, it's very easy for the pitcher to talk about the problem. And so it's easy to go long. And when you go long, you're going to have to skimp out on something else. The other thing too that we see is that people get up there and it's just a lack of confidence. They want to spread that risk. And they're like, say you are like, oh, have you ever experienced this? Or have you experienced that? And people experience this thing and that thing. And they will like want to shotgun out this product or the problem to different segments, hoping to catch some person. We don't want to hedge our bets. Pick the problem, pick the core problem, the core group, the core market, target market. And that is what you need to focus on. Like that is your core customer. Don't try to hedge your bets. So just focus on that one problem. Don't go long. And then we talked about Gary on the performance side. Well, people are visual learners. So we want to, this is a performance and we're going to be telling a story. And so like one of the like Uber's first pitch was, imagine you're at a basketball game. You and your buddy, you're enjoying the game. You've had too much to drink. You don't have a way home. Wouldn't it be great if you were able to push a button on your phone and then a car came and picked you up, dropped you off, and you didn't have to worry about money, hailing a taxi or anything. It just appeared. And so like that's really easy for you to visually put yourself in that position. Like, yeah, I've been in a jam where I needed a ride. So like people are visual learners and we want to present this as a performance and as a story so that people remember. So like a common phrase is numbers tell and stories sell. Like I still remember many, many, many stories of all the different pitches that I've heard. But when someone is, just spouting off numbers, like that's like Charlie Brown with the telephone, just wah, 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 wah. It's super, super easy to like just get glazed over. Or some people want to check your math to make sure that that is correct. So visual learners tell that story. And then with that, we want to talk about how big is the problem? So yeah, you've experienced this at the basketball game. How many other people, experience the same type of thing? Well, is it home ownership? Is it, it can be a range of whatever your business problem is, but how big is that problem? We want to share that this is a problem that is worth going into, it's worth solving, and that people feel that pain and they want that pain point solved. Anything to add, Gary? You good?
No, good.
Okay. Now that we have that, so the problem framed and ready to go, people are like, yep, I totally get it. I feel that pain all the time. How can you help me solve that? Now we're going to get into the idea and the innovation in terms of how you're solving that problem. And things to consider here is that your audience doesn't know you. And most importantly, the judges don't know you either. So keep that in mind. Don't be so close to the trees that you don't see the forest. Assume they know nothing, and you have to explain that solution in in a way that anybody can understand as if they're hearing it for the very first time. A lot of times founders will skip over that, thinking that the judges are going to be able to pick up on it. But here's like a little spoiler, is it like investors, judges, they're although they're smart, they are not geniuses and they do not know everything about everything. That's why investors have certain verticals and they specialize in the vertical that they're very good at. Get them outside of that vertical and they're like, they just don't know. So you know it, the audience doesn't. Again, how big is that problem? Is the problem big enough? So it like we use the analogy of like, are you selling violin string oil or are you selling, water to people on a desert that everybody needs it? Very the need for violin string oil is very, very small and niche. Whereas like if you have something that everybody needs, that's what we're looking for. We're going to disrupt that market that is very, very big and ripe for destruction. So a thing to add about, is the problem big enough? There's a phrase called total addressable market. How big is it? So I'll use real estate as an example. The real estate industry, so like the lazy way of calculating this is you go to Google and you're like, how big is the real estate market in the United States? And it's going to come back with some crazy number that's probably like $30 trillion, something ridiculous. Well, the likelihood of you getting any percentage of a $30 trillion market is like zero. And if you use that as your total addressable market, then you're losing credibility with the judges and with the audience. So we want to narrow down. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but we want to narrow that down to, what does it look like in Virginia? What does it look like in Hampton Roads? What does it look like for single family? What does it look for condominiums? Keep on drilling that down. And then once you get that manageable number and you can show that you're very, very targeted in terms of who your audience is, then now you're showing that you know the customer. They're showing that the problem is this. It can expand to this, but this is where we're starting at the very beginning. So lazy TAM is starting with that number from Google. Your real TAM, your bottom up TAM, that is when you start from the very, very bottom and work your way up. The bottom up TAM is much, much more creditable. Talking about how you're different and how you're better. How do you differentiate yourself? And you can do this by keep the focus on you and talk about, these are the things that we're implementing. It's not necessarily a matter of, well, this company stinks. They don't do that. They don't do this, and they don't do the other thing. We want to keep the focus on you. We want to keep things classy. Like this is your time in the spotlight. Keep yourself in that spotlight. And like the thing you want to talk about is that, hey, you're 10 times better than what the current competition is or what the landscape is. And like investors, judges, like what you have to realize is, if you want to change consumer behavior, you need to be 10 times better than what the status quo is. And if you're not 10 times better, then they're going to resort back to what they normally did. And so like the thing is, like with Tesla, for example, it's not just an electric car. They knew that there's no oil changes. They knew that you didn't have to go to get gas. There's no preventive maintenance. It's the safest car. There's software updates to update your car every time they push out a release. There's all these things that make Tesla better than the traditional car. And that's why they continue to take market share from the automotive industry. Whereas like the automotive industry, as they're moving to electric, the only thing that different is, all right, you go from gas to electric, and that's not enough. That's not 10 times better. So they're like, I'm just going to buy a gas powered pickup truck because, there's no reason to get something otherwise. So think about that 10x aspect. And it's the same thing with Uber. Push a button, no tip. You don't have to talk to the driver. The car just shows up. You don't have to hail a taxi. It's just 10 times better. And it's just like a no-brainer. So think about how you differentiate yourself. And that's the stuff that you need to focus on. And like, again, bringing that back to the story aspect of it, you talk about, let me introduce you to Johnny. Johnny is in this situation where he experiences this pain point. Johnny is not alone. 30 million people in America suffer from the same problem until now. Let me, my solution solves that problem, and this is how we do it. So we're telling that story and we're bringing people through like that story arc so that people are that visual learner. They get all this stuff and then everything starts to make sense. Anything to add, Gary? All right. So we got that solution, and it's like, who is going to put that solution together? So this is, again, this is we touched on the team and some things to consider there is this is where you need to showcase your strengths. And a lot of people will overlook this stuff. I mean, like if there's one area that I think a lot of people really like just totally, I guess for lack of better terms, blow it. It's like people aren't comfortable like bragging about themselves and the things that they are capable of doing. But this is your time to showcase a strength. Even if you're a second time founder or a third time founder, that is a strength. And me as an investor, I would rather invest in a second time or a third time founder because I know the lessons they learned along the way they are likely not going to make those same mistakes again. So don't shy away from that. Don't wear that as like something that yeah, I'm embarrassed of. Like, hey, I learned a lot of things and now this time I'm ready to go and we're going to make things great. Why are you the person to solve this problem? I mean, it's just like this is where the passion kind of comes in and like, hey, we all worked together at a previous organization. We knew that this problem needed to be solved and our previous company wasn't willing to go down that road. So we left the company and started this business, and it's got to be solved. Gary and I, there was one company that they developed an app called Answers Now, and it was like you're in a store with an autistic child. Your child has a meltdown in the middle of the store, and you don't know what to do. How do you handle that situation? Well, Answers Now, that's an app that you go to, and it will take you through the steps needed in order to help you get through that. And then as it turns out, that he's like, the reason I built this is because that was me in the store. I am the father of an autistic child. So like he needed to solve this for himself. And a lot of founders, they do create businesses because they need to solve their own problems because there isn't an existing solution for it. So why are you the one to solve that problem? I think that's anything to add, Gary? All right.
I think we're good.
Cool, cool. So we've touched on the problem, we've touched on the solution, and now we're going to get into that third piece, which is the marketability piece. And this is the customer aspect. How well do you know your customer? You have to identify them. So this is where I was kind of jumping ahead a little bit when we were talking about the bottom up TAM. You really need to know that customer almost better than they know the problem themselves. It's just like when you're riffing with somebody, and it's just like it's almost like they know what you're going to say next, and you feel that level of comfort. Well, you being the expert in your business and you understanding that problem and you having that solution that's 10 times better, you should almost already know what pain points your customers have before they even say it because you're the person. You're the one to make it happen, and you know who those customers are. So, to show in your pitch that you know who your customers are, and that shows that you have an understanding of what your market is and who you have to go over, how much money you're able to generate. This is where like your financial model, although not required here, but this is where it all starts to come into play. Like this is how much it costs to make. This is, how much this is the size of our market. If we sell this many, then we start plugging numbers in that way. But you need to understand show that you have an understanding of the market. And again, focus really small and then you can expand. You don't want to what we call boil the ocean. You want to start really, really small and then expand that radius into a larger market size.
Can I add
And
one thing there,
yeah,
Tim? Yeah, and so I remember, I think I read this, but about some people that were trying to create a better pillow, and they went and stood in a Bed Bath and Beyond or something, and everybody that came to the pillow department, they asked them questions about pillows, like what are you looking for when you're buying a pillow? What are the comfort features of the pillow? All these kinds of things that they did, sort of their test marketing, just to learn about what people were really looking for. And maybe it was one little thing, as Tim says, focus small and then expand. And they were just looking for this one thing to make the pillow that much better, this one thing. But they wouldn't have known that if they hadn't gone and asked a lot of questions and really found out from customers why they were buying these things. So, just a thought.
Yeah, well, that goes to how are you delighting your customers? So, like, if you do have a product and you do have customers, what is the feedback? Do you have any quotes or any testimonials? What is your do you have a rating on Google or Yelp or somewhere else where you can talk about, hey, this is what we're doing. Customers love it. Or just based on our initial customer interviews, we've talked to X number of people. This is the feedback that we've received. Or yeah, perhaps you have a waiting list of people that are waiting for you to release that product. Um, so that they can be the first ones to buy it. So this is just all positive ways to show that you have traction and that you're out there talking to people and that you're validating this idea. So it's just really, really important.
Can I also say that sometimes we find that people that are entrepreneurs, they don't like to talk about their stuff and themselves and what their strengths are, and they feel like it's bragging. And in this situation, you have to be willing to talk about your idea. It's your baby. What is it? What are you skilled at? Don't be afraid to brag. I mean, Tim and I will help you to if we feel like it's sounding braggy. And but if it's the truth, then you have to become more comfortable with saying things because so many people don't say these things. They have a pitch and they just don't want to say, wow, I feel uncomfortable talking about why, why people like this and why you've got to get over that. If you have that hesitation, you got to be willing to just talk about in positive ways your idea, people that want to buy it, why they want to buy it, how you're helping people, how you're delighting people.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
Cool. So the execution piece, this is without execution, you don't have anything at all. It's just an idea. So things to consider with the execution. And this isn't necessarily like part of the scoring rubric, but like you need to know what your why is. Like this is part of your pitch and this is part of your performance. Like when you're up there, you can just like the person I was talking about with the autistic son, you just they had to solve that problem. Like no matter what, they had to solve that problem. Or if I don't solve this problem, I'm okay with like living in a box underneath a bridge kind of thing because this is so important to me. This is my why. I have to solve it. I'm not saying that you all have to have that mentality. I'm just saying like, but that authenticity in terms of what your why is, that is something that you can't hide. And again, that is the performance aspect. Whereas if you just get up there and you just sound like a robot and you're just spouting out facts, and because the market says that it's this size and it's going to be valued at this size by 2027, that's not going to be enough because the highs are really high, the lows are really low. And as soon as you get kicked in the gut, the why is going to what gets you back up to dust yourself off to try it again is the next hour, the next 10 minutes or whatever it is that you need to recoup. But you need to know your why. And you just can't hide that. The why can't be money. Because again, the first time you get kicked, you're going to go on to a fresh new idea that offers you a lot of money. So it can't be money. How are you going to make it a reality? So it's just like this is like kind of like this is where I am. This is where I'm going to start. This is where I'm going to be. And like your team is going to help you make that a reality. But it's just like this is the like a part of like um, we understand you're not going to get to the final product tomorrow, but first we're going to accomplish this, and then we're going to add this feature, and then we're going to add this, and determine what you're going to do to make that a reality. That you're actually thinking through this process, and you're gonna make it happen. Because investors invest in people, they do not invest in ideas. Like I said, an unvalid idea is worth nothing. A validated idea is worth everything. But if you have a person that knows their why and they know how they're going to make this a reality, and they are determined to do it no matter what, that is what someone is going to invest in.
Yeah, I would
And
say that the why is your passion, and that's contagious. And we can tell just watching. This is just a tip for everybody, is that the audience, in this case, the judges as well, they believe what they see more than they believe what they hear. And if they don't see passion, if they don't see a commitment to it, if they don't see that you're going to make this happen if you have to sleep in your car every night for the next 2 weeks, you're going to make it happen. If they can see that, then they believe in you. But if they don't see it, and it's not, it's really, it's a feeling and it's not a tangible thing. It's hard to describe it, but you know when you see it. And that's what the why is.
yeah, I mean, it's just like for me, I'm not shy about telling anybody. Like at Innovate Hampton Roads, we're going to create $1 billion company on each of the 7 cities within Hampton Roads, and we're not going to stop until we do it. And it's just like, so we will continue to do whatever it has to be done. We have the companies on our radar, and we continue to tell that story, and we continue to bring attention to our region. We're going to continue to bring capital, and it's just like 14 years ago, when I was a guy that graduated from William and Mary and was like, hey, I'm going to get in the startup world because I think that I can help. That seemed like it was so long ago. But like now, like I've been talking nonstop since 9:30 this morning, and it has not stopped. So like podcast, meeting. The one meeting was a former football NFL player from from down in Florida. The next meeting was someone who just moved in from Maine, by way of Silicon Valley. So like now all these people like they're see Hampton Roads, but we're just not going to stop. And it's just like people understand that that's what we're going to do. The Startup World Cup that we just did last week. I mean, like these are all things we're just not going to stop until we accomplish this mission. And like I think that that sets us apart.
And
And
it's a shame that you don't have any passion about it.
I know, I know. I'm gonna take the next week or two off. And Emmanuel, you got it, man. All right. So I just talked about a validated idea is better than idea. All right, so that's what we're working for, and that's the purpose here. Basic needs, what we're talking about here. This we hinted on this about leaning into your vulnerability, and some things to consider here is like your vulnerability is a strength. It is not a weakness. So if you're a second time, third time founder, that's okay. Lean into that vulnerability. Founders are not expected to have all the answers. Yeah, I mean, it's like you look at some of the greatest founders out there, like Robinhood, they stepped in it, during the whole thing with them, like they make mistakes. Uber, they made mistakes. Elon makes mistakes. We all, it's just, this is really, really tough. I mean, it's so leverage those strengths. Everyone is willing to help you. But if you don't share what your needs are and how you can be helped, no one knows how they can help you. And so like I bring that up in the terms of like when you pitch, when you share the things that you need, and perhaps that last 10 seconds, that's what you want to do. Hey, I am a single founder. I need a co-founder. Or I'm a non-technical founder. I need somebody with technical developer experience. I'm looking for a full stack developer. The judges have a huge network. Fellow pitchers have a network. The audience has a network. Gary and I have a network. Everybody's willing to help you, but you have to just lean into that vulnerability and share how it is that you can be helped, and you'll be amazed what will happen. It's super special.
When I was starting my business, I was in an IT business as a slugging through the corporate world for like 20 years. And at the end of that, I was so miserable. And I shared with a friend one time, I said, this is what I really want to do. And he said, who have you told? And I said, nobody, I'm telling you. And he says, tell many people. If you tell them what you need, they will help you. And once I got past the fact that I needed to know everything and that I should tell people what I need help with, so many people helped me and gave me opportunities and helped me learn new skills. But if I just kept my mouth shut, which is what my original plan was, I can make it on my own, it wasn't going to happen. So totally agree, Tim.
Yeah. I tell you, as an investor, I'll put my investor hat on quickly. There's nothing more sad to me than when a founder will come and say, I'm at my wit's end. I'm ready to close it down. And it's like, if you would have told me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when you first identified what these problems are, we totally could have fixed it. But now we're in so deep that like there's no we can't turn this thing around. That's really that's super sad for me. And it's just like so like Gary and I would joke, not in a making fun of someone way, but like when we were at the launch pad, you see founders there every single day. They're fired up. They can't wait to get there in the morning. They get kicked in the gut. They show up a little bit later. Then they take a day off, and then they take another day off, and the next thing you know, it's like, man, where's so and so been? I don't know. I haven't seen him in a week, and it's just like you can just see it just going down and down and down. Next thing you know, never to return. So just lean on one another. Super, super helpful.
When I started my business, just as an anecdote, when I started my business, I told my parents I was leaving this really well-paying corporate job and I was going to start my own business. And they went, oh, okay. And then they said, well, what are your plans? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. And they said, well, just so you know, we're not going to give you any money. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, we had our own business for 20 years. You got to figure out if you can make it on your own. And if we give you money, we're just infusing false profits. So you need to go figure it out. Make sure you can do it on your own. And if you can't, you're always welcome to come eat at our house. But we're not giving you any money for a business that you don't even know if it's going to work. I was like, okay. So you strap in and I'm going for it. Okay. And so I'm 26 years later and it didn't fail in the first 6 months. So that was good. But yeah, it's just you just got to go for it. Got to go for it.
Yep. I think you're up. Yeah. So like again, here's another little tip for everybody. And this is like the mentality of how judges think. So like if you're not able to identify the problem, then there is no need. And if you don't talk about your solution, then you have no product. And if you don't have that, and if you don't have a market, then you don't have any growth. So like here we are, we're talking about those are the three things that you're evaluated on: problem, solution, and market. That's why you have to talk about those things. And then with no traction, you have no customers. If you don't have a model, you don't have any money. Without a team, you don't have any execution. And then finally, if there's no performance when it comes to your pitch, then there's going to be no memory of you. And that's not a good thing. So we want to highlight the performance aspect of it.
Yeah. So Tim, I think now we're going to hit into some tricks of the trade.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that when I'm coaching people in my regular business and in this space is that they tend to not want to practice. And the old saying is, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. And you've got to practice. That doesn't mean you practice to death because you can over practice, but I've never known anyone to make it work by pushing off the practice part. And there are ways to practice that are really, really helpful. So the first thing that I would say is that you've got to get used to seeing what other people, it's not there yet, Tim. Got to get used to knowing what other people see. And that means you've got to practice with a video. If that means you set up your own Zoom thing and you practice giving your pitch to yourself. Okay. Or you got a phone and a camera and you set it up across the room and nobody's home but the cat and the dog, then do your thing. And then here's the spooky part, go back and watch it. And then you see what people see. This is what they're going to see at the pitch. This is what my voice sounds like at the pitch. This is what my slide transitions look like at the pitch. Practice those things. It's miserably uncomfortable. And I didn't used to like to do it, but if you go back and look at anyone that's a performer, a true performer, a musician, an instrumentalist, a singer, an actor, any of these people, they all watch the video of themselves doing it, and they get really comfortable with it so that it comes to the point where they can coach themselves as if that's not them in the video. So really encourage you to use the video and go watch yourself. And I guarantee you it's horrible, it's uncomfortable, it's miserable.
If
But
you
you got
want to take that one step further, take that video and then have it transcribed into text and then highlight all the filler words and pauses and ums and ahs. And then like if you want to figure out a way how to probably take out 10 to 15 seconds, if you can sharpen that stuff and eliminate that, you'd be
yeah,
amazed what you're able to, the time you're able to save.
yeah. So Tim was talking before about the introduction and that you want to have an attention getter. And the first thing to not start with is a question. So some people come out and go, "Hey, how are y'all doing? Has anybody ever had a situation where your dog ate your credit card?" And we're waiting and you're just wasting time because nobody on the Zoom call is going to answer. And so you could propose uh, a theoretical issue, but asking questions probably not helpful in this. It's a valid tool if it's a live performance, not in a pitch competition. So that's the first one. Second, Tim mentioned this, don't start with your name because they don't care until they have a reason to care. So you want to get their attention about your problem, your idea, whatever, and then you can tell us who you are. Because honestly, Tim and I don't really remember people's names in the pitch competition. What do we know, Tim? Oh yeah, the woman with the this who had this idea. We tend to more know you by your idea than by your name. So, but the name is going to be on your video, on your screen that you have behind you, your background for the pitch. So they'll know who you are. The judges will, and other people will. So just, you don't have to start with your name. It doesn't help. They don't care. Tim's talked to, oh yeah, be sure that you delete anything that's irrelevant to your story. So I have a friend who used to be, I think he still is, he's a speech writer for a US senator. And he used to come and talk at my class at William and Mary about his experiences doing that. And the one thing that he always talked about was you've got to be willing to kill your darlings. And he would explain that as he writes really clever things for the senator to say. And then they go back and review it and go, yeah, that was really clever, but we can't use it. So you've got to be willing to go through and essentially kill your darling. The things that are irrelevant to your story might be clever, probably not helpful, get rid of them. And so anything that's in the way, get rid of it. Tim's talked about this before. It's a story and a performance. I don't like to refer to these things as presentations. The presentation is, it's not you, it's what's in the box. But you are, when you're with the thing in the box, it's a performance. And it doesn't mean it's a theatrical performance, and you don't have to be not you. We want you to be authentic. We want you to have passion. We want to be able to see your why. We want all of that, but it is a performance when it comes down to it, and it's going to be remembered. And if it's not great, it gets remembered as not great. And if it's really awesome, it gets remembered as really awesome. So things to think about. For every slide or line that you add, go and ask, does it enhance the story? Does it detract from the story? Is it helpful? And when Tim and I help you, we're going to ask you those questions. We're going to say, how is that helping what you're trying to convey? And you're going to go, that's a really hard question. And we're going to go, yeah, we're paid to wait. We have lots of time. We don't get paid anything, but
We have a lot of
I'm
time.
trained to outweigh you. I can outweigh you for the answer. So yeah, those are just some tips about how to make this really be an outstanding performance. I also encourage you to go back to on the YouTube channel. I think that's where they were posted, right, Tim?
Yep.
For Start Peninsula, and look at past performances. And you can see all the people who pitched, and you can see who won, who came in the top three. And you will notice some of them are number three and number four are probably neck and neck. We don't post who 4 through 10 or 12 were, but we their performances are there. Go and watch them. See what things you liked. See what things you think moved them ahead to be a finalist. Really go watch that stuff. It's like any competition, in a sports competition, in a music competition, in anything, if you don't think the competitors, they're all out watching what their competition's doing. When I was in high school band, I mean, we would go and sneak onto the up into the stands of a rival high school and watch the band rehearsal if they were going to be competing against us at a big music festival. We would go and watch and go, wow, like I see what we need to do, you know? And so now you have the ability to do that with video. So go watch the Start Peninsula videos, watch the winners, see why they won. You'll be able to tell. There's probably more we can talk about, but I'd rather see some rehearsals.
Or if anyone has any questions,
Yeah, absolutely.
please ask questions. And then, this is how to get in touch with us. If you have any questions, if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email. If you want to send a recording of your pitch, you can do that. If you want to send a transcription of your pitch, you can do that. I will not speak for Gary. I don't know what his schedule is. I will say that I am a super busy person. So please don't send something to me and expect to get a response back in 5 minutes. I am super timely when it comes to this stuff, but depending on the day, I have no idea what's
This is my
happen.
favorite. 5 o'clock next Wednesday, you get an email. Hey, could you take a look at my pitch deck and just make sure it looks good?
Yeah.
No. But
Well, that's a great point, Gary. Like one of the things is like so many people will spend like 90% of their time on their slides and then 10% of their time on their performance. No one's going to remember the slides, but everyone's going to remember the performance. You'll be like, yo, that dude stunk, or whatever the case is. But meanwhile, man, those slides look good. But we don't want you to have bad slides. Don't get me wrong. And we can go into some quick tips about slideology and how to make that nice. One slide, one point. Don't have a word on an eye chart. Yeah, like there's a lot of best practices there, but like spend your time on the performance.
yeah, it's all about you. And to that point, when you make your slide, know that if I have to choice between listening to you and reading the slide, I'm going to read the slide. So if it's just one or two or three words, or charts are awesome because they show, if it's a graph and it shows the trend you're trying to demonstrate, then we can look at it while you're explaining it. Great, great. But having tons of text on the slide, I'm going to choose to read rather than listen. So you don't want to do that. Any questions? Awesome. Everybody's ready. Thanks for coming tonight, everybody. See you later. No, I'm
I
kidding.
got a question.
Yes.
Would you say you had about 6 topics for us to cover? Would you say then the slide should be about 6 slides long?
Hard and fast rules like that are difficult because when, like in a corporate environment, when somebody makes a mandate about number of slides, they'll say, let's say it's nuclear engineering, and they'll say, we're doing a presentation on nuclear engineering for our customers, and you're going to speak on it, and you can only have 5 slides. So what does the nuclear engineer do? He or she really needs 50 slides to explain nuclear engineering. And so they cram 50 slides worth into five. So that's not helpful. So um, I, I think try six. If you do 10, I had a client one time and she said, I have these slides. And I said, all right, great. You got 10 slides. I said, now what if you had to do it with only seven? And she went back and cut a few and went, yeah, I really don't need these. And I said, now you got to do it in three. And so she cut it to three and guess what? That worked great. I said, okay, you can have five, you can have two more back. And she had five. So I think you got to build it, and it's always easier to cut, but I would shoot for fewer than more. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's helpful for you.
And to Gary's earlier point, charts are a great way to put in a lot of information without using a lot of words. Pictures are great. If you've got a video, like a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 10,000 words. So like you got to make sure it's right. Like this is, you got to practice, practice, practice to make sure the video works properly. And I'm not saying like push a video and then your pitch just goes and talks for you. I'm talking about like if you had animation, like I'm going to introduce you to my app. The so and so Johnny logs in. Once they log in, they go to the next screen. If like all that is like automated and moving along with you as you're talking about the story, that's what I mean from the video standpoint, not recording your pitch and you just sit there waiting for your 3 minutes to end. That's not going to go over well.
We have a question.
Hey,
I have
so
a, I'll go next. I didn't raise my hand.
so my business concept that I'm pitching is a very new business concept. And so what are you guys' advice for that from that standpoint? I mean, in terms of market research and customer discovery, obviously, I'm a three-time founder, so I still have another business, but I'm not pitching that business. I'm pitching this business idea. Um, Customer discovery and market research, I can get some of that done before the pitch. But in terms of the pitch, I know that it's a big problem, and I know that I think my solution is there. So what advice do you guys have for that? From that standpoint?
One of the slides, and like that I will work with people from a later stage standpoint is like a why now slide. And so like now is a time for me to introduce this business because, and so like in your case, it might be first mover advantage. If I'm the first person that's out there, I've identified this. I've talked to X number of people, that indicated there's a need for this. Yeah, and now you just have a wide open market that it's yours for the picking because you're the first person. Like that would be one of the things that I would potentially highlight.
Thank you.
What's the layout of the presentation? Like, if we brought a product to the presentation, would it be worthwhile to do a little show and tell, or is that something that we should stick to the slides?
Well, you have to think through that in the sense of, so it is going to be on Zoom. So you need to make sure that like whatever you have is just going to be, whatever's going to be visible. I mean, the 3 minutes is yours to do with
Okay.
it however you wish.
And know that you're going to have a background, and when you have a background, then when you hold things up in front of it, the screen, it doesn't, you have to get it right up next to the camera, or
Yep.
it's blocked out because it doesn't know that it's you. So that might be difficult.
I want to do it that way. I like starting with the show and tell, and then I'll share my slides right afterwards. Takes like 20
Okay.
seconds to do it. So
Yep.
as long as you
However you
guys are
want.
on board, I'm on board.
Yep. We just
Okay,
like
and then
to we just like to ask you, for everybody who's pitching on Wednesday, is to we'll get on early, and then we'll test your screen and test your sharing and all that, so that it doesn't take oodles of time for it to. We just make sure it works, and then whenever you want to do it, I'm the MC, so I turn it over to you, and you can do your show and tell just on the regular screen, and then you can share your screen, and you're off to the races.
okay. Tim, you mentioned a idea of, having an ask for the audience with the judges and other people having a good network that they could potentially extend to us. Is there anything that's not askable? I guess is really the question I have.
I
I'm
don't
looking for
think
an early
so.
adopter, and I want to set up a pilot program in Hampton Roads. So I think that we're well
Yeah.
positioned to do
Yeah, you're
that. So
totally, yeah, if you're like, hey, we're looking for people to sign up to be a alpha tester or that want to, that's totally that's above board. You're cool to do that.
okay. I just got yelled at last week for doing that, so I just wanted to double check. But all right,
No, you're
awesome.
Well, you can do it and then we'll just yell at you. How about that?
That works too.
Because
As
you've
long as
already
I
had
get
it
to
happen, so it
as
won't
long as I
hurt
get to
you.
ask Gary. That's all
No,
I
it's
care
good to
about.
ask. Absolutely. Um, Somebody else had a question before. Yasmin, did you have a question?
I did, but I think it was slightly answered, so I'm good.
well, we can
Okay.
fully answer it if you want to us to.
Well, it was more of like a technical question in terms of like the slides, and I didn't know if we needed to hand it over to you guys or
Yeah, everyone will be able to share their screen.
okay.
So just make sure you practice driving,
Okay.
driving that and so that you don't fumble around.
Okay. Oh, and one question, since additional question, what would you say in terms of the expectations? I know everybody's at different stages, but like, get it how what are some slides that you would say are unnecessary to talk about in terms of the pitch? So I would think maybe like financials and things like that wouldn't necessarily be, or like business model, is that important?
If you had like a word chart that talked about like, and here's my business plan, that is just like a sample of like one page that is like Laurel Ibsen filler text kind of stuff, I would avoid that. If you had like these are my financial projections when you don't have any customers or users right now, I wouldn't worry so much about that. I would just focus on the fact of we're in the process of now of onboarding our first six or 12 customers or whatever.
Mm.
Just because financial projections, I mean, it's just every single one of them is exactly the same. It's a hockey stick that goes up and to the right, and you're going to be making $100 million in the next 2 years, and then IPO a year after that. It's just all fiction. So, like, don't worry about that stuff either.
But then in terms of business model, because I know sometimes the question comes up, it's like, how do you guys make money? So is that, do you feel like, I guess in this 3 minutes, is it important to do that or just cover it in Q&As?
Yeah. So, I'm glad you brought this up. So this is like the judges have the rubric, and I kid you not, like it literally says problem, solution, market, performance. But like an indicator on the judges side is what like when they start asking questions outside the bounds of the rubric, they're like you can tell that like they're into what you're doing. So we're like, oh, tell me more. How do you make money on this? How much does this cost? And it's just like, we onboard these judges to like we're not there yet. November, when you get through to November, then we're gonna like start introducing that kind of stuff. But like if you're like, hey, we're a subscription model, we're a marketplace, right now we're gonna be brick and mortar, like that should be able to do that. That should be enough in terms of like where you are at the current stage.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Something to think about too, which we can't tell you the night of the event, but the judges are going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you, usually the well-behaved judges ask one question each. Sometimes we get a rogue judge that wants to ask you 3 questions at one time. And then that doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. And so they're going to give you all the questions at once, and then you're going to get 2 minutes to answer them all. And if you answer them all and you still have a minute left, there might be something in your pitch that you didn't mention that you could go into a little bit more detail. And you could say, because you still have time until Tim says time, and you realize, wow, I've got some more time, instead of just letting it go away, you could say, something that is interesting too that I didn't mention in the pitch, but what you need to know is this. And so use your time, be in command of your time, that you can't tell them everything in the pitch, but you might be able to weave some extra information into Q&A. You may be able to do that.
Real
So-
quick, vulnerability is a strength. That will be the key phrase for those people watching the replay. Vulnerability is a strength. I'm sorry, folks that are watching the replay. It took us an hour and 6 minutes to get there, but all the information we talked about up until now is really important. But yeah, to that end, the Q&A is designed a limited time because otherwise it will drone on and on and on. We got to get this thing done. And so we want to like train you as the founder, like answer the questions very succinctly. How many customers do you have? We have 6. Done. You don't have to go into like the characteristics of the customer, what the persona is. It's just gonna draw out more questions. You just want to like volley back and forth with these judges. And we all 3 judges will ask their one question. We put the 2 minutes on the clock. You answer those questions succinctly and be done with it. So that said, we have had people in the Q&A go from on the bubble to in the top 3. And we've had people in the top 3 talk their way out of being in the top 3 based on the Q&A because they just blew it. And so just answer the questions and move on. Be bold, be brief, and be gone. I mean, just done.
Matthew has a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. If we, like you said, have a co-founder, have you seen successfully where we both present, or with such a short amount of time, just one person presenting?
If you're going to have both on screen, I would have a talking part for both, and you all can you can rehearse that and
Okay.
know who has what slide. Be like, just for the purpose, this is being more of a dialogue thing. You know, I ask Gary if he has anything he wants to add, or and vice versa. But like we knew who had what slide to talk about. So I mean, you can certainly have both people talk, but it looks kind of goofy, like from a observer judge standpoint. If you have 2 people and one person doesn't say anything, then it's just like, why are they even there to begin with?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you both be in the same window, or would you be in separate windows?
So separate. So we're geographically separated.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that can work, but we've had people who have said maybe you save that for the next pitch if you move on.
Yeah.
That you both have a role, but you only have 3 minutes, so it's kind of tough to shift back and forth.
Exactly.
So you might think about one of you, whichever one you feel is the most polished at this or the most confident at it, that's the one who does it this time.
Gotcha.
You could certainly, or that person could also be on for your questions. And you could say, I'm gonna pass question 2 over to Steve.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, I can definitely do that.
To my partner, Steve. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Just random person.
Just right.
Doesn't know. I'm gonna ask Tim to answer that. Thank you. Anybody else have any more questions before we have a chance to practice some stuff or give it a whirl?
Yeah, I have one rather nuanced question about different markets. So, problem, solution, market. We have 2 markets, one now, one in the future, and I don't want to confuse the audience in those 2. One leads directly into the other. So, do you guys have any thoughts on if something's 3 years out and in the plans but not currently in the plans? Should we address it, or should we just drop it for the sake of the 3 minutes and the rubric that you've discussed here?
I would focus on the alligator closest to the boat.
Okay.
Focus on what's now. But if you had like a roadmap slide, I mean, like that could be one thing. Like next up, and like either one, you can say in 3 years we're going to hit this market, and that like takes 2 seconds, or you can just have it in the slide and people can read it, and you don't even need to say anything at all.
Okay. Awesome. Thank
You
you.
agree with that, Gary?
Yeah, I agree. And it's only 3 minutes. That 3 minutes is going to go by. I bought radio advertising time one time early in my career on a radio thing in DC, and I had to go down there, and it was $100 a minute. And I had by the time I got there, I was cutting everything, and that minute went by so fast. And it was really only 55 seconds. So I think for most people, the 3 minutes goes by, boom. They don't even know it went by. And so it's going to go by faster than you think. So I would not cram too much, don't try to cram 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Yeah.
All right.
Super quick on judges. We're very thoughtful on who we select as judges. So they're people that have been there, they've done it, they have experience in it. We want to do a couple things. We want to set you up for future fundraising. So the sooner we can get you all on their radar, the better. And then we're like, oh yeah, I've heard of them. I like them. So we're super strategic when it comes to who we bring on as judges. No one complains about the judges until they don't advance. Then the judges suck.
They were the
So we're
worst
super-
judges ever. Ah. Okay, who's up? Who's up first?
I'll go first.
Perfect.
I didn't know if there was an order if you were asking that or like,
Can I ask a quick question?
No more questions. We're practicing now. Yes, please go ahead.
I think I missed something. Okay, so the vulnerability, what's the word?
Vulnerability is a strength.
Vulnerability is a strength. Okay.
We have you. And Emmanuel, I'm sure that you've marked down everyone that's here. These are so for people if they couldn't make the this live, if they want, they can watch the replay. Like the big thing is we don't make money. Start Peninsula doesn't make money on the pitches. We just want to make sure that everybody shows up because we sell out every single one of these. And it really like bums me out when like we have to burn a slot. Someone's like, yep, I'm going to be there. And then they don't show up. And we had 3 people on the wait list and then they didn't have an opportunity to present their business. So that's what it's $50. As soon as if you attend Pitch Perfect, hit your business, and then we give you the $50 back. Yeah, it's just really to make sure that people show up.
And you don't want Tim bummed out because I've known him for 10 years and he does a nasty man cry when he gets sad. So you don't want to see that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, you know me.
I know. He's very sensitive. He's vulnerable because it's a strength.